Okay, hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's seminar on the dynamic topic of gamification for sustainability. So before we start, just a few information. So this seminar is part of a series of seminars that actually IULM is doing as part of the IULM Sustainability Week. And you can see that actually we set up 4 seminars, 2 today, and tomorrow we have another 2 seminars. So we invite you, of course, to attend all of them because they are all incredibly interesting. And today, another information, you have a chat. So if you want to ask any questions, you can just write them in the chat, and we will make sure to answer all your questions at the end of the seminar. Okay. But today we are actually privileged to have here with us Claudia Gaudiello. And she's a strategic partner at Urban Air Limited, and of course, a notable figure in the gamification strategies tailored for sustainable practices. So she's also, so I'm actually reading her CV because it's huge. Like, she did so many things that for me, it was like impossible to recollect all by heart, but because it's amazing. So she's also co-founded Mini Greenie Heroes, a non-profit organization with the goal of educating youth on the 17 sustainable SDGs goals, right? She's actually an ESG specialist in Italy, and she advises financial institutions on how to enhance sustainability in their portfolios, focusing on human capital, stakeholder engagement, corporate reputation. She actually has more than 25 years of experience, international experience. She worked in London, Shanghai, Hong Kong. She graduated from Cambridge. She's an impressive curriculum. So congratulations. And we are very glad and excited to have you here today, Claudia.
Thank you. I don't know. You set the bar very high now. I was such an amazing intro. I'm thinking, oh gosh, pressure is on.
This is all on your CV, right? These are all things that you actually achieved.
It's real.
And so today she is going to actually explore with us how gamification can be leveraged as a transformative tool in the context of sustainability, which is something that is really amazing. So to start with, I would like to ask Claudia to share insights on the foundational aspects of gamification in the digital age. So for you, Claudia, 2 questions to start with. So could you explain the concept of gamification and why it is becoming an essential tool in interactive communication, and especially on social media platforms? And also, how does a gamification stand out compared to other digital engagement strategies in capturing audiences' attention, and particularly on facilitating sustainable interactions?
Okay. So first of all, let me start by saying thank you for inviting me, because I'm always very excited and always getting the opportunity to really share my experience, mostly my passion, to really plant small seeds towards and of sustainability and innovation, whether we do it through new narratives or new mediums. I really love what I do, and I have the pleasure to really work with amazing and inspiring humans. So we always try to keep pushing boundaries every day, to exploring the most effective, impacting, and by all means engaging communication tool. One thing that I want to share before we dive into the topic is, recently I would say there's been a lot of gloom and doom out there when looking at where we are and where we need to be to achieve certain goals, particularly sustainability goals. But there is one thing that I'm very confident, and that is that if we want people to be aware and to be engaged, we need people to be hopeful, particularly the next generation. Gamification, we think, can help to do this. And I hope that by the end of this talk, you will all agree with me on this. So If you don't mind, Eleanor, I will be addressing your question by showing some slides because I think that can be also a little bit more visually impacting. So prior to jump to gamification, and the meaning and the role of it, I would just like to share a little bit of the loading, as you can see from the slide, of this journey, just to put things in context. So how did we get there? If we go back, we just turn back the clock to 2012, Rio de Janeiro, the UN conference, the future we want, which I think is a beautiful name for a declaration on sustainable development and green economy. Now, at that point of time, it was kicked off the process to develop a set of SDG. A set of SDG that actually came in adoption in 2015 in Paris, alongside of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which was a universal call to action to protect the planet and the people within a specific time frame. Last but not least, 2017, we're talking about Earth Day. The theme was environmental and global literacy. Therefore, the need to bring more awareness and to speak more about relevant topic related to environmental and overall societal issue. Now, with all this framework, as professional in the industry of communication and education, we kept on asking ourselves how do we actually break down the complexity and the amount of content and information of this topic to all stakeholders and individuals. Now, in the past 10 plus years, we have been working with multiple corporations, drafting over 150 sustainability reporting, having a countless numbers of stakeholder engagement, survey, hours of corporate training. So all the traditional, let's say, methodology to transfer information and transfer knowledge and awareness to the stakeholder. However, we came to the point where we felt we were kind of ticking all the boxes when it came to stakeholder communication of what the corporation were expecting to have, which is achieving reputation, feeling compliance, engagement, and obviously creating a corporate culture. We wanted to add an extra layer to this. We started asking ourselves, how can we actually enhance reputation with a stronger sense of purpose, almost to become activists for a cause? We wanted to frame compliance from an obligation that you feel forced upon to a sense of relatedness, something that you can actually relate to and that it matters to you. We want to step up engagement towards a sense of ownership and ultimately expanding the perimeter of corporate ecosystem to social ecosystem. So the question was, what is next, right? And that's probably when we realized that one of the most memorable and perhaps long-lasting curve of learning, it's connected to the power of play. So just like when you're a child, right, and you're learning certain things, and you learn them by doing them, right? So that's when gamification came into the picture. So gamification, first of all, let's start by saying that the way we see it, it's an engagement that combines three major factors: behavior, psychology, and design. What do we refer to as gamification is integrating game elements. And by game elements, let's think of points, let's think of level, badges, leaderboards into a non-game context. In simple words, you can look up at your phone right now and see how many tracking apps you have, whether it's sports tracking apps, whether it's the steps that you make every day, languages, or any other app. What do they all share in common? It's rather simple. First of all, learning new things, tracking your progress, celebrating milestone, which is a quite exciting added value, and last but not least, sharing it with the community. So this really adds that little extra edge, I would say, to stay connected in a world where we are highly immersed into social media, and obviously to share it with your peers. So this is how we came to understand the importance and the relevance that gamification could have. Now, obviously, there is a flaw, and I was addressing this into the why. So the main reason why gamification matters and it stands out for us versus other means of communication is, number one is the learning, and particularly the micro learning. So that ability to really break down a complex topic into something that is easier to understand and eventually embrace. Number two is user engagement. So getting the user to be engaged at his own pace also. So I found this to be can also be a rather inclusive sort of method, and also at its own intensity. Behavioral retention. Now, this obviously relates to the fact that as the more you practice and the more you play with in any context, the more you retain certain new habits that you might be building. And alongside this journey, the more you accomplish, the more you feel motivated to continue. Another important element is clearly the collaborative reward. I mean, we believe that fostering the collaboration among peers or among the players, it obviously leads to an even bigger achievement. And at last, this could appear to be a little bit more on the operational side, the data collection, and which eventually helps the profiling. So having the accuracy not only to profile who is playing, but also what is the expectation to enhance their learning curve. So this is a very very powerful tool for the user, but also to those who are generating the content behind. And obviously the exposure to gamification into the social media, it kind of enhance even further, and it helps even further the penetration and the sharing. Now, when we started this journey of gamification, clearly we also looked at the landscape of recreational gaming, and I have a couple of numbers here which are quite mind-blowing, I have to say, just to put in context, because it became even more encouraging to understand the world of recreational gaming with regards to potential and the population and trends of it. So when we look at recreational gaming, we're looking at obviously statistics vary quite a bit, but I would say that around 3 to 3.1 billion people are playing recreational gaming. So that's a big share of the population, out of which 52% are placed in the Asia Pacific region. So clearly there was a little extra nudge for us to get into this and understand it even further. Now, what is interesting to know is that the cluster between 18 and 34 years old, it actually comprised 38% of the gamer population. However, the average age is 35. So if we will all imagining the recreational gaming is about probably just teenager spending hours on a computer, on their mobile phone, is actually not the exact picture of recreational gaming. Now, what this tells us that the eagerness of people to engage in a gaming contest, even past the age where you would naturally expect them to be very eager, it's there. And therefore, you can engage even with kind of more mature, I would say, cluster of population. 55% of this population is male, 45 female. So this is also quite interesting because we clearly see a quite fair balance between the genders, with an average spending per week of hours playing between 8 to 9. So if we could just take a small share out of that, that's a big lot of numbers that we could taking up. And obviously mostly interesting, 89%, so almost 90% of downloads are digital. So this brings it back to the relevance of using particularly mobile devices. It's probably one of the main devices used towards recreational gaming, but overall the entire digital experience. And then this eventually will lead us to make it even more immersive. So yeah, there was about time for us, I would say, to enter the arena based on these facts and based on a journey that started a little bit like sustainability on the more higher governmental, corporate, and then slowly bringing it down to all stakeholders. But in this case, I would like to say to all individuals. So time to step into the game.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claudia, for giving us like this clear overview of the potential, right, of gamification. So my next set of questions for you would be like, if you could actually elaborate on how gamification is then can be used, right, to enhance environmental education, and also how well we would love, of course, to hear more about your the Mini Greeny Heroes initiative, right? So if you could describe the project for us and the role of this project in raising awareness about environmental issues and SDGs through gamification.
Surely. Well, if you don't mind, I will start with the project then, because that's something that
Sure.
is very, very close to our hearts, clearly. So we go back to the slide for a moment, and I want to share a little secret, right? Our secret formula. How gamification? How do you bring to life gamification, right? Or I would rather say which are the essential to us, the essential elements that can make up a successful gamification exercise. We brought it down to 4 elements. Number 1, a compelling storyline. I mean, most stories, they always starts with the once upon a time. So whether the once upon a time is the day before or much earlier, it doesn't really matter. But having an epic meaning and a calling. So the compelling storyline usually always has to make you feel like you can make the difference. You know, we all love in games to feel like we are the last hero being able to save the world or whatever task we have been asked to do. So compelling storyline is the foundation. Visually appealing graphics. It is very important how the characters are presented. We kind of give a very strong attention to the details, and you will see in the coming slides as well. A touch of humor, because it's always, you know, let's not forget, it's a play, it's a game. So you want to make it a bit fun, right? You want to inject a little bit of fun into it. And obviously interaction. We always feel like it almost has to feel like it's a buddy. It's someone that you would like as a friend as well, right? Intuitive controls, that's more on the side of the engagement. So on one side, we always keep asking ourselves, how can we make the complex topics down to bite-sized pills of learning and action, right? And then last but not least, a meaningful long-term objective. So back to the idea of once upon a time, there was a hero who's going to save the world, right? Let's give to this hero a kind of long-term goal, which eventually will prompt behavioral changes. So on with this little formula, which obviously has been applied to many other exercises of gamification that we worked on, but this was the foundation of our mini greenie heroes. We developed the mini greenie heroes as a project really dedicated, as you correctly mentioned in my intro, to the younger generation, to the youth. Oh, I have to say, I also like to say to anyone who is young at heart, right? Anyone who is ready and willing to understand and embrace the key pillars in sustainability, particularly the 17 SDG. I think as long as sustainability will not be part of the mainstream education, we have to spread as much awareness and as much knowledge as possible. You know, I often hear people saying, there's nothing I can do to contribute. Now, I always say, okay, imagine that this sentence has been repeated 8 billion times. That makes an impact. So we have to see it in this perspective. Now, it was 2019 when we started working on this project. And at that time, the daughter of my co-founder, she was 9 years old. And she was constantly exposed to our conversation. And she often came up with questions like, can we really prevent sea turtles from dying? Or avoiding extreme weather events? Or, I don't know, can I make sure that everyone can really enjoy a decent meal every day? So obviously, at that point, we felt like, okay, if we can address these questions with some realistic answers, probably we can really bring down the topic of SDG to something that everyone feels related to. So we decided to give a voice to each SDG goal, and actually to turn each goal into a fictional mini hero with a specific and clear mission, which was the mission of the SDG. So 17 goals, 17 characters. Actually, technically, they're 18 because the partnership for the goal, which is SDG 17, they're twins, win-win. And just like every good story needs a villain, we also have our villain, who is Bob the Garbage. Now, Bob is the guy who obviously we like to call the little ounce of reality. He's the denier. He's the one who feels that sustainability is just a buzzword and there is nothing he can and actually he wants to do to make things different. As you would expect, he's very grumpy and he's dressed up in plastic, which is pretty much now aligned with the theme of this Earth Day. But then next to the Bob, and I just pick one of my favorite, we have Switch. Switch is hero number 7, which is affordable and clean energy. And this was just to share a little bit of the details that went into the creation of the characters. You know, you can see that his belt buckle is a solar panel. And instead of wearing a hat, is wearing a wind turbine on his head, and this is actually empowering him to generate energy out of his fingers. That's his magic kind of hero activity that he can do. So with this with this set of heroes and characters, we started to build narratives. Eventually, the debut was on social media first, particularly on the platform of YouTube through video and micro learning pills, and then IG account. Then we actually stepped into the first game, which was a card game. Now you can see it from the screen. I actually have a deck here with me. I never leave home without. And the game is it's a game of 52 cards, where basically each there is the hero card and the action card. So each hero, which is the SDG, explains what the SDG is about, and then the 2 action cards are potential actions that can be taken by the players. And I'm not going to get into the full rules of the game, but obviously what we did, we brought this game to primary schools in Hong Kong, and this was giving us the opportunity to really give them a full immersive experience. Number one, introducing the SDG, then showing and sharing educational videos where you will know more about the topic. Here we're looking at life below water, and also giving some sharing of information more specifically related to the country or to the city where they were living in. And ultimately we were providing a take-home challenge. So after playing the game, after understanding more about the SDG, there would be a challenge that could last anything in between 1 week to 1 month. This was decided with the teacher from the school, where where each individual was upkeeping the track of the progress. And there was also a collective kind of challenge, which ultimately was deployed. At the end of everything, they would get this really nice certification, the awesomeness certification, that actually you have played your part, and without you, we couldn't have made it. Right? We have seen an incredible interest by many schools in Hong Kong, now looking at other territories to bring this, because first of all, it's amazing how children are so keen to learn and to really play their part. And I have to say, what has been even more amazing all along is how the children can actually become the teacher of their parents. So they will go home and they will be very proud to say, Mom, you don't do this anymore. Or I don't want to buy fruit off plastic bags. And we were really collecting some amazing feedbacks on this. So card games is something that we continue to do, and obviously using it as a very specific kind of educational game. But then we stepped more and more into digital gaming. First, with several memory card games. So basically the memory card works as a regular memory card. You have 2 or 1 card, and you have to mix and match it and remember the sequence of them. Different types of search word, but mostly we look at a quiz. Now, this is a quiz which has been developed for the G7, which is hosted these days in Turin. So basically, we were asking 10 questions where the player will have to answer. In some cases, can be just a true or false. In some cases, can be multiple options. And once the answer is provided, there will be the great job or try it again. And with the great job, there will be, you can see it from here, a little bit more informations of the description. Sometimes even providing a little action that could be further taken. Or in this case, since we are in Italy, we were addressing the question of how much plastic is compounded every year, and we put in the perspective of how many thousands of Pisa Tower and Colosseum, so that it kind of is retained in a rather playful manner by the children. Now, clearly we have not been the first, and hopefully we will not be the last towards creating SDG engagements and gamification. I've just shared a couple of cases, other examples here, of the 2030 SDG games, which is actually a game for adults, and one of our partner in Of Goals, who are certified game facilitator, they actually deploy this particularly across Asia, but now also in other part of the world. It works in a similar manner of there are challenges to be tackled, and with the collaborative effort, you have to find solutions. Whereas we see the SDGs action a platform by the European Community, which invites more and more development of games for particularly children slash teens. We see Go Goals, which is the official Sustainable Development Goals board game, that again has a little kind of roadmap to get to the ultimate goals, and you have way that you can fall back or you can move forward by always acting the right way. And then also we see Stairway to SDG, which is again by the United Nations, a platform that is encouraging globally, worldwide, the development of different games and goals. But then back to your questions of the applications, particularly with environmental or generally, I would say, also societal outreach and education. I've shared, I know it's a little bit small, but different applications across also different fields, right? Now, number one, exciting news, and I have to say exciting for the number that I just read to you before, is sustainability games are entering the gaming world. Now, back to what I mentioned, we're talking about 3 billion people, right? So we see games like Save the Future, which is basically exploring the interlinkages between social, financial, and environmental system. So the aim for the player is just to look for a way out to some situation that seems rather hopeless, but to whom obviously there is a possibility of getting a way out. So to me, that's I always believe in collaborative efforts. The more games and the more initiatives out there, the better we can reach the goal. So seeing that games entering the real gaming world, is obviously, I would say, good news. We see social simulation through fictional games. We're looking here at After Fantasy, which is basically a board game again. So you see that there is options of card games, board games, and all the entire digital world games. But board games is probably the one that is mostly used in group or collective kind of interaction, because usually it requires a multiplayer, right? Now, particularly After Fantasy is basically presenting a fantasy universe with real world challenges. So again, there is often cases of limited human or financial resources, big conflicts, and then the player has to face the opportunity to, first of all, understand what the conflict or the challenge is about. Secondly, to act upon and collectively share a solution. Then we're looking on the right-hand side. I wanted to bring to the attention, because this is something that we've also worked on, and we are seeing a quite great response in gaming within corporations. Now, this is the KPMG pilot ESG program game. Basically, they wanted to share across their workforce, so it's for internal stakeholder only, the ESG corporate training. So how do we train the employees to know what a corporation is doing, but at the same time also some key facts and some key pillars. So KMG deployed this, and at the end of the entire journey, you would be receiving a certification that you have attended the game. What I found it mostly interesting is that the users played an average of 29 times. So this again is strengthening the idea that at every age level and also at various educational level, there is the eagerness to people to interact via a mobile device, or in any case via an application, with a gamification kind of context and environment. Um, for a corporation, obviously, this adds quite a lot of value in sharing. For corporations who have an international, a global footprint, in sharing their strategy or simply their culture through a context that is an application on a mobile, right? And is something that I know it probably doesn't work in terms of work-life balance, but it's something that you can access anytime, even on your free time, and you can play with it. So it kind of enhances also the employer branding. Another case that I found very interesting is this Circular Amsterdam. So basically, a Circular Amsterdam is it was a co-design exercise. You would say, how can it actually fit into a gamification? Well, the topic was circular urban development and all the challenges that this brings to the users, who are whom? The citizen, the local citizen, and the local business owner. So, what the city of Amsterdam did to resolve potential conflicts or needs was actually to put people together to co design how the urban development should be evolving for the coming years. So, again, a very interesting example of how you get several people around the table to actually try to overcome a challenge and find a solution. The last one of the applications is it's now moving more and more towards immersive experiences, right? So we started by just games, co-design, and now we're moving into what is related to the mostly immersive until a kind of a mixed reality dimension. So the most immersive experiences are escape rooms in an online, but also in a physical, or in some cases you can have some sort of cross-contaminated, what we call the phygital, right? So basically, where the players can play both in a physical space, but then also bring this experience to an online platform. And this is what we're seeing here on the bottom with the Rotterdam School of Management, where they created an escape room to share and to actually train and bring more awareness to the SDG. On the upper part, we have the WWF escape room with different real world scenario. So I don't know if you have been familiar with escape rooms, if you have played any. Basically, you have this time pressure that within a certain amount of time, you have to find solution again to some problems that look pretty tough to tackle. But you're in a team. So it again is fostering collaboration, and I would say most of these cases is they're trying to make you think a little bit out of the box as well. And I think, don't we all need to do that to sort of overcome any challenges that the sustainability or our everyday life is posing? So, but again, is doing it in a game environment. I want to add one more thing. When you are playing a game, somehow you give yourself a certain freedom to test and explore that perhaps you wouldn't do in any other environment. And this eventually taps into the amount of creativity that you can bring in. So when I was referring to the out of the box, the thinking out of the box, it's kind of, you feel like you are in a playing environment. You can be freer in exploring. It's kind of can be done. And this is quite remarkable when we witness this within corporation, where we have carried gamification exercises within corporation, not necessarily on sustainable topic, but perhaps on optimization of resources, energy, or any other environmental topic as well. The kind of ideas that will generate in a gamification environment will be much wilder than those traditionally discussed in a boardroom. Now, the extent of how wild they can be, it doesn't really matter, but the importance is to go a little bit beyond the ordinary, to think something that perhaps you wouldn't have tried before. Now, going beyond the ordinary, I will end the conversation of the application with some metaverse challenges. Now, here we see two options. One is Discoverse, and this is a specific metaverse challenge in education. It was developed by primary students in Hong Kong, pretty much on leveraging on the Minecraft game, and is blending physical and virtual universe to understand the biodiversity and nature conservation. So you get to understand more about the topic, and at the same time you get to again play with it, and understand your contribution that you can give, but at the same time that also you can get. Lastly, there is on the right hand side this platform which was created within the spectrum of mental well-being. Now, this is something I have to say a little bit, it could open up some debates. And I feel that one of the challenges actually also with gamification is ethical issue as well. How far can you push the boundaries? Now, in this, and I wanted to bring up this case because basically it's a bunch of avatar attending therapy session. We have seen this within a big corporation, hospitality corporation, where they were trying to, obviously, after COVID and witnessing that there had been a lot of mental well-being issues, how they could support their workforce. And at first, when there was a non-avatar environment, the level of commitment or the level of engagement from the team was extremely low. The moment that virtual and metaverse dynamics were created, people were feeling more open to join with an avatar. So I always like to say I'm a bit an old school, and versus all this different kind of reality out there, I still prefer this reality, and I still prefer to meet in person and to be with people. However, at the end of the day, I think it matters to reach an objective and a target. So whatever is the medium to get there, it is probably something that we should definitely explore and try. So I always say, let's always go very open, with an open mind and also with an open heart towards any challenges that we are asked to tackle in a way. And I think I hope I've covered, even though this is quite compact in a way, the kind of the very broad world of gamification, and of course we haven't tapped into the trend yet.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Of course, I was wondering, well, there are many ethical issues right there as well that maybe might need to be explored, but considering more like, because so far we concentrated somehow on successful cases, right? So I was wondering what are the challenges for like an organization that is trying to implement in like this types of approach, right? This approach.
Oh, I mean, I can tell you there is a lot of failures out there. Many. I mean, we had quite a few share as well. Now, okay. So first of all, in terms of challenge, I would say that ethical issue, particularly to me as well, is one of them.
And
Uh,
maybe, Claudia, just one thing, since we also have some questions from the audience. So, one of the question is actually how hard is it to create a project like Mini Greeny Heroes? So maybe you can address also this one, right? Challenges and also how much resources, so how hard it is actually to create something like that.
Yes, I'll finish up with the challenges, and then I'll move on to the challenges of Mini Green Heroes. Ethical issue is one of them. First of all, in terms of protecting privacy, it will be more and more, and but also keeping transparency. So any information that I am collecting from you, what I'm actually doing with it. So that is a challenge, particularly when we look into the realm of location-based gamification, where I'm literally tracking people and knowing exactly where they are, what they do. What am I doing with this whole huge amount of information? Another a big challenge or risk that I would say in terms of behavior can be the competition overexposure. So just like you have dependency from gaming, you also don't want to overdo by pushing people to constantly be on your app or on the device to reach a certain level or to get a new badge. So it's kind of like striking a little bit of a balance. And lastly, I would say, how do you always keep the interest and the engagement? Because very often there is the tendency from some of just pursuing the goal of winning the game. But let's not forget the gamification is about mastering the content. So this is a very subtle difference, but it's very crucial. You want to make sure that people can keep interacting until they really master the content to the point that perhaps they can generate their own content rather than just saying, okay, I win the game, I put a badge on, I'm the hero, right? This is not the point. And then, of course, on the more operational side, there is clearly the complexity of the design, the accessibility of resources, because let's not forget that a game always should be compatible with the learner's phone or device. You know, we don't want to keep creating newer and newer and newer technology that doesn't actually keep up with the technology of the device. You know, that creates frustration. Now, to the question, how hard is to create a project like Mini Greeny Hero? Well, I have to say, Mini Greeny Heroes is a project that really comes from the heart. It has been hard, but it has been incredibly fun to really being able. And here I have the deck of all the heroes card to take again a complex topic and to try to make it engaging and to try to find all the possible levers to make it also a little bit fun and and approachable for the people. When we started at the beginning, it was obviously very challenging even to measure how good it was performing, because for the first couple of months all we were doing was just producing videos, so collecting a lot of content and producing videos that could make people understand even the basic language of sustainability. You know, what do we mean by gender equality? What do we really mean by climate change? What does that 1.5 degrees Celsius mean? So just the very, very basic foundational information. And then how do we bring it to a broader public. Now, I see one of this question is, what do you think is the main selling point of the Mini Greenie Heroes project? I think if we compare this project with all the other projects out there, what we have tried to do is really to give a character to the SDG, to give a voice, to give an identity, so that you could really make it into almost a fictional persona, right? And as we often, and if anyone will be following, you will see that the Mini Greenie Heroes, they actually dress up in different outfit based on the different occasions that they are invited to be part of. So I think that's obviously a very unique selling point, how much we have tried to bring them into everyday's reality, because that's exactly what we aim to do with this project. We want people to understand and feel that SDG is not a government or a big institutional topic. It's everyday individual topic. It's not exclusive, is not far off us. It is something that every day we should remind ourselves it's about the planet, it's about the other human being. And then even the fact that we're giving the heroes a name, like end poverty is Richie, end hunger is Fidel, and so on. You know, we try to give some cute names that you can relate to, and you could really almost like this hero could become your buddy, someone that you want to share your time with and you want to share the mission with. I feel this is and this is probably one of the strength that at least we try to achieve. And I know obviously at first you will look at this project and thinking that the core target, it is, as I mentioned, children and teens, but at the same time we have seen a great interest even during the session at schools with the students and the parents, from the parents themselves, you know, that they were a little bit kind of shy to share that certain answer they didn't know, or there were certain terms that they didn't know. And eventually it's kind of, we try to create a safe environment for everyone to relate and to be in. So when we look at the wonderland where the Mini Greenie Heroes live, and it's quite cute. You see things like on the seesaw, you see gender equality playing with other heroes, and there is always a reason why something is happening, and this is what we're trying to inspire. Like, always go beyond what you see to understand what is behind, and give your contribution to this. We are more and more opening up to ideas and contribution from users to what the evolution could be, also of the Mini Greenie Heroes, and the kind of challenges that they can develop. There was one last slides that I wanted to share, which is a quote that I like very much. And if we can just have the slide back on, I will. Okay, I will be reading it. I don't see the slide coming back on, so I will be reading it. And it's actually a quote by Eldridge Cleaver from the book Soul on Ice, which says, "There is no more neutrality in the world. You either have to be part of the solution, or you're going to be part of the problem." And I really like to wrap up a little bit with this quote, because this is also a quote which was used by Martin Jennings in 1970 at the first Earth Day manifestation and gathering. And obviously, in 1970, probably most of the audience that is listening to us right now wasn't even born yet. But Martin was 17, so they can relate to his age. And he took part of this quote by saying either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Now, I'm not a kind of person who likes polarization, to be honest, but I believe that when it comes to sustainability, you have to take a side. And if you don't, and that's when the last slide I wanted to project, which is the very, very last slide of my presentation, you will end up in a gamification jargons, game over. So if you would pick on the word solution or problem, and if we were in a gamification environment, picking on solution would have moved you to the next level and probably you would have been granted some kind of badges, whereas picking on problem, it would have moved you a level back when the game is really over. So we really believe that anything um, in terms of new medium and in terms of new stories that can be told to help people or to facilitate the understanding and the possibility that each one of us has towards achieving certain goals, no matter how big or small, I think is a responsibility. Is beyond an experience or is beyond a passion. It's really is a social responsibility, and that's what we try to do. So we hope that more and more projects around SDG will be developed. We are happy to see that more and more institution, corporation, and particularly school. I'm really happy to see how schools are embracing the idea of educating the kids through gamifications, but mostly educating the kids towards sustainability. Let's not forget that in those classrooms, there is the future CEO, probably CFO, or even Chief Sustainability Officer, or whoever will make an impact in the future. So we have to raise the new generation by understanding the relevance of all of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Claudia. And I think we don't have any other questions. I just agree with everything you said. So as we come to an end of this seminar, I want just to thank you and to express our gratitude, of course, for the insights that you share with us and your expertise that you share with us today. And on behalf of IULM and of course all the audiences, thank you for a very and a truly enlightening session, actually. So I would also like to thank our audiences also for the interesting and engaged questions that you asked today. And I just want to close actually reiterating what Claudia's initial statement, right? That hope is at the core of sustainability. So we need hope, first of all, to build a better and more sustainable future. And so thank you so much. And it's
thank you.
yes.
It's always a great opportunity to share, and I hope that we will have more chances in the future.
Yes,
More
thank
chances
you.
of hopes.
Exactly. We need hope. We really
Yes,
do.
a lot in a very big dose.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia.
Bye.
Bye.